Yes, the Charlotte 49ers will play football in 2013. It's a done deal.
Hi friends, welcome to the 49ers football special. I'm Ryan Rose, and typically at this time we've got a coach, we've got a player, we're getting ready to talk about a season. We don't have any players yet. There is no coach yet. So we're going to talk to a couple of the architects of the 49ers football program. We're going to talk about the program rather than the season. The Chancellor of the University, Dr. Phil Dubois, is here, and the Director of Athletics, Judy Rose, is here. And right before we get into the football stuff, I want to take it just a step back and talk about just the growth of this university. This place is getting huge, but still manageable. Right. And one of the campuses that's really growing across this great state. When we think back to, I think back to when I first got into the Charlotte area in 1983. This is your second tour of duty at Charlotte. Right. Talk about the growth of this place and the wow factor, I think, when people start to come back to campus, as it were.
Well, Ryan, it's been tremendous, as you just observed. I was provost here from 1991 to 1997 under Jim Woodward, our third chancellor. And we used to talk at that time, and we were about 14,000 students, about how 25,000 would be a great long-term goal for this campus. But we just blasted through that this fall at 25,064. And we really think that, you know, within 10 years we'll be about 35,000 students.
Long-term just got here. Long-term is
very
here,
quick,
isn't it?
very quick. And with that, of course, you have to get support from the General Assembly to build the buildings you need, and you need support from donors and friends, and even our students have chipped in because they supported the building of the new student union, and they're supporting the building of the stadium.
And Judy, before you were athletics director, you were associate director of athletics. You were a coach. Think about the first places you coached, where your office used to be, where you've moved, you know, as the place has grown. Just in athletics alone, the number of facilities and just the look of the university kind of changes each year, each decade.
It's tremendous growth. We go back and we walk by the Belk Gymnasium, and it's hard to even fathom that we were in that facility. And we shared that facility actually with Intramurals and the College of Nursing. Right. And that alone tells you, and we were all on the same floor, the second floor of that facility. And that tells you how much. We have a new College of Health and Human Services, and it's a huge building. And to think that 35 years ago, we were in second floor of the Belk Gymnasium, and there were 3 departments. Intramurals, actually 4, Intramurals, Physical Education, Athletics, and the College of Nursing. So we've seen tremendous growth, and it's not just growth of the buildings. I think it's how the buildings look, the architecture, the standardization on this campus. And there are times when we had some growing pains in athletics because we raise most of our own dollars to build the facilities, and it costs more when you have to go to a standardized look. And I remember having conversations about, we can't do this right now. It's like, yes, you can, and you will do this. Yeah, sure we will. Years later, I'm very appreciative of that.
A couple of interesting numbers as we dig through and get ready for a special like this. You talked about over $99 million worth of athletics facilities here and coming, including tennis, including football. That's a staggering number when you look back to, as you said, the way things were to where they are now. $500 million overall on the campus. Right. Those are some big dollar figures, but they have to come from a whole lot of different places. How much work has gone into raising that money and turning that into physical buildings on this campus? And you also have to include the growth of the infrastructure, the parking, the roads, everything that goes along with that.
Well, it's come from a variety of sources. The General Assembly funds a good bit of it, but the big boost was the bond measure in 2000, where about $3.2 billion went into higher education and $2 billion came to the university system. UNC Charlotte got about $200 million at that time, and that started the new rash of academic buildings. But then we've added things like the Student Union, the Student Health Center, paid for both by students. We've added the Center City building and the Bioinformatics building through appropriation by the General Assembly. And we've had some private gifts that have helped with things like baseball and tennis. So it's all hands on deck. And then things like parking facilities, unfortunately, have to be paid for by the users of the parking. And that's unfortunately a tax on our employees and students. But that's what's required by state law.
And it all helps the infrastructure.
It all
and
helps everything.
Your number as well, just in athletics alone, a lot of that has to be raised by the athletics department, the foundation, and yourself.
Well, all of it has been except really the football, and the students are bearing the cost of the stadium for that. But our growth really started in the 1990s, and we actually realized that athletics was the low man on the totem pole in the request to get things built, because we still needed a library that was larger. We needed academic buildings that we didn't have, and so in order to get athletic facilities, I approached the chancellor at the time and said, you know, are we ever going to move up on the list? And well, not in a timely fashion. I'm like, can we begin to raise capital dollars then? Instead of just operating dollars, can we begin to raise capital dollars? And our first project that the Athletic Department Foundation did was the Wachovia Fieldhouse. And that was in the 90s, and then it was, you know, we had a portion for the Student Activity Center and then the track and everything else. You can go on and on. But, you know, you get ownership into it, and there's a great degree of pride from our coaches and student athletes. Quality facilities are going to really enhance the type of student athlete you can attract to your program.
With a few new athletics facilities, baseball, I know softball got improvements, tennis coming, you can see a little bit of swagger, and you know the coaches are excited because immediately these high school kids are on the website and they see all the things that are going on. I'm sure it's a huge help. Okay, football. You've already jumped through a lot of hurdles. You've already jumped through a lot of hoops to get the monies and to get the approvals and to get all the different things from the study all the way to where we are now. Before we go forward, let's just kind of sit and reflect on all the things that you guys have had to do and the approvals you've gotten from all the various and sundry places. And what does that feel like? I know it's a busy time, it's fall, we're in the middle of another academic year, but just for a quick second, take a moment to reflect.
I think in retrospect, I wish I'd worn those helmets.
Might needed pads too.
It was pretty bruising, but well worth it, I think. I think we did it the right way. We studied the question objectively and carefully. No stone was unturned in terms of the analysis, and then subsequently, I think the proof in the pudding was when you could get the president of the university, the Board of Trustees, and a 32-member Board of Governors all to agree that this was the way to go for UNC Charlotte in the long term, that validated the decision to move forward with football. It's not to say it's going to be easy. Right. It is an expensive endeavor. We don't expect to raise a great deal of money from this to pay for all of that goes into football, but we do think it's going to have great benefits for our students in terms of their experience at this university and in connecting that larger community to the university.
That's one of the key points I do want to revisit is the connection there. If you could go back and tell yourself the moment the football stuff started what it was going to be like to get just to this point, what would you tell yourself at this point? What would you tell that you, I should say?
We started as an athletic department a little earlier than the feasibility and those committees were appointed because we kept hearing the voices that were speaking out to the chancellor, the alumni, and the students, and we said, whatever the decision is and whenever it's made, you know, it will not be wasted time for us to go ahead and start preparing. Even if the answer is no, we will not have football at Charlotte. I'm the eternal optimist, so I kept thinking the answer is going to be yes, we're going to have football, so we've got to be prepared. So the telephone calls, the dialogue with folks that have football across the country, from startup programs to programs that have been in existence for a long time, have really laid the groundwork for us to be where we are today. The only thing we were really behind on once all the approvals took place was getting a schedule together for playing in 2013 because on the Division I level, football schedules are done 4 and 5 years out. That's nobody's fault that it took us this long to get there. That's the procedures you have to go through. Right. And we'd set the date of 2013. We could have postponed it to 2014, but none of us wanted to do that. So we were playing catch up in that one area.
Just that one area, but it's fun to get those first announcements because it's sort of real. You know, there's a logo on a T-shirt that says, this is the first game. This is the date of it.
Surprising that you should mention
this is the opponent.
Yeah, here we are.
How exciting was
Isn't
that
pretty cool?
when you were able to get that contract? Now there's a tangible countdown in place.
All right.
It is here. It is coming. There's no stopping it now with Campbell.
The announcement, the T-shirt, the stadium design, things that folks can put their arms around.
Right.
They know it's real. And the big thing for us was, you know, each step of the process, there was always an if.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If this gets approved. And then we could finally say, the if word is gone.
Mm-hmm.
It is gone. We are going to have football here. And now we just have to dot all our I's and cross all our T's to make sure we make it the best experience possible for August 31st, 2013.
Yes.
Actually, Judy told me this morning that 800 of those T-shirts have already been sold, so they're in multiple press runs.
Mine's on back order. I haven't
Yeah.
gotten mine yet, but I've ordered it. So
Build it, and they will come.
waiting for
and
it.
they will buy T-shirts.
They will buy T-shirts. We want them to buy tickets and show up at this game. Let's talk about. Go back to your point about the connection to community, not just from the media standpoint, but ownership by the people of this. One of the exciting things about being a Charlottean for as long as I have is the Hornets came in town, in on the ground floor. The Panthers come in town, in on the ground floor. This is something else that I, as a Charlottean, can be a part of from the first moment. Actually, the first moment's the T-shirts and things like that. But the first game, to feel like I'm a part of it, that's a great feeling to be able to give to people around here.
It's been a big challenge for this university to be seen as an important institution, but I never really got it until Erskine Bowles, our president, was speaking to the Charlotte Rotary here in his first year, and he looked right at the Charlotte folks at the Rotary Club and says, you know, this university will never be successful until you, the community, own UNC Charlotte. Mm-hmm. And that has triggered so much for us in thinking about how do we get the community to own us. Part of it is to move a major academic site downtown, our new Center City building. Another is trying to advocate for light rail that would connect us to the city in a better way. And football has been part of that as well. So I think in a town where you've got so many graduates from Chapel Hill and Wake Forest and NC State and Duke and everywhere else, we've been fighting for our place, and this will help us achieve that.
What is it about football that brings people, everybody back on a Saturday afternoon? Why is it that that's the connection?
You know, several people have asked me that. How is it different from basketball or soccer or something else? One thing is, almost all the contests, not always though, are played on a weekend. And it's usually on a Saturday afternoon. And folks have time to bring their families. They make it either a full day event or a weekend event. They come back, they'll go over to the College of Business, the College of Architecture. This is where I went to school. This is where I sat in class. They tell their children, they bring them up as 49ers. And they get an opportunity to reconnect with their old buddies and their alums in a way that you can't do in a 2-hour basketball game.
Right.
You just can't do that. You can do it on an all-day affair on a Saturday, and then you've got Sunday to go home and relax a little bit before you have to go back to work on Monday. So I think it does several things. It reconnects alums to this campus that maybe were only connected in a brief way years ago, but they see this as an opportunity to reconnect. And then it just totally enhances the current student life and gives them something to build on, to connect to right now, and then they're not going to want to miss it down the road. They're going to come back, and we won't see other people's jerseys or T-shirts on this campus. We'll see 49er jerseys everywhere and logos.
It'll be fun, not just from a football standpoint, but all the other events you can plan around a weekend.
I was going to say I was president at University of Wyoming for 8 years in Laramie, Wyoming, not exactly Center City. And I would say it started on Friday night and then went through the games and even afterwards. Of course, if you won, it was a much better post-game party.
Sure.
And I found I was a much better university president when we won football games. But with that said, it is a complete cultural experience for many communities. And hopefully, since we are building the stadium on campus, I think that's going to make a huge difference for our students and for our alums to come back to the campus rather than playing, let's say, as we thought early on we'd play in Memorial Stadium downtown. I think that would have been fine, but not as good as being on campus.
Sure, and I like the way when you look at the renderings and the way it's being planned, placing it where you're placing it. You're showing off the North Campus area, the new graduate buildings. There's some more parking decks coming up there as well. You're showing off the connection to the new baseball stadium, and where the football stadium is, up on a hill, just like baseball. When you're sitting and watching, you get that beautiful, I call it the university skyline. That, you know, the sun hits the library just right. It hits some of the buildings just right, and you get that glow. The view from there is going to be amazing. I like how you've connected it back into campus. Talk about that process of how that came about.
Well, we went through a lot of options. We, of course, explored Memorial, which had some issues on its own, including the county's ability to participate financially in a recession. We looked at converting the Belk Track and Field to a stadium. We brought in some consultants, and it was doable, except that you'd have to have a line of porta potties across the creek and all the concessions over away from the stadium. And so we settled on this. It took some compromise because we were taking away recreation fields from our students for a very big and important intramural program, so we've had to replace those fields elsewhere. But I think at the end we made the right decision. And then another critical decision was, I thought it was going to be just in front of the Duke Centennial Building, but the architects convinced us to move it between the two buildings so that when you look in from Highway 29, you get that shot of the campus and the stadium. And one thing people need to know is that at least our plans for the long term are we're not going to build up the end zone near Highway 29 so people can actually see into the bowl. It'll be a really great sight.
Not only from inside the stadium, but driving by. Oh,
Correct.
By the way, here it is. As you drive by, please, drive safely. When you're driving by, don't look while you're driving. But if you're at that stoplight, take a peek in. And part of putting the stadium there will require some more moving around of roads and obviously improving the entrance there. But what's been part of that process? What's been that process for you, getting the facility put where it is now, and some of the things you guys have worked on to get it there?
Well, it was part of the campus master plan as well. That was being done during this time period, and so we got voices and opinions from a lot of people as to where it should go. And one of the main things they said was it connects the CRI campus to the regular or normal day-to-day university campus, and it brings some life to that area with people going back and forth. And we just think the design of the stadium fits into the architectural design of the CRI campus, and it's going to be a beautiful stadium as well as a functional stadium, and that's what we wanted, something that's going to look nice on this campus, but something that's also going to be functional for us. It is a football stadium, and we need people to remember that. It won't be exactly like CRI, but it's going to have a lot of the elements of design in that, and I think it's something the students will be proud of. They're going to want to be a part of it. It'll have our logos a lot of places, as you would imagine, and again, just get the school pride and the school spirit involved. And light rail.
Part of the decision to go with artificial turf was really to make that stadium more useful more times in the year, whether we're doing it for different kinds of daytime events and gatherings or obviously practice for the team. It can be much more useful with the artificial turf, and I had a little experience with this at Wyoming. It's really improved over the years. It's in many ways not as difficult for players in terms of injury. So it'll be a great place to go, and we think people will be proud of it.
On down to the surface, everything was considered.
Oh, yeah.
And it brings up one thing that the Chancellor said. It also allows us to give some outreach to the community. If there is a really important high school championship football game and they need a place bigger than their stadiums hold, and ours happens to be available, we can reach out and do that, and we can provide some of those opportunities in that regard. And that connects us to the city as well.
And expandable. I don't want to delve too far into that, but built in stages and layers so that as more growth happens, expandable. Media exposure on this. Not only from the media attention garnered from announcing football, announcing the first game, but the impact that football has. That you're probably the best guy to talk about. We're used to the media exposure for basketball and for championship soccer, championship baseball levels. What does the extra exposure do? I know a lot of times athletics is called the front porch of the university. Talk about the media exposure, what it means to a college football program.
Well, it was interesting. Of course, coming from Wyoming, I maybe didn't come from the media center of the Rocky Mountain West, but it certainly helped our university with our connections around the state. But I'll tell you, in Charlotte, the most interesting and often the most funny thing that would happen is when we would bring up football at a trustee meeting, all of a sudden we'd have 5, 6 television cameras and more than a dozen reporters. And I hate to say this, but trustee meetings don't usually pack them in.
Sure.
And so, you know, even most recently when we had the stadium images being displayed, we had a full rack of TV cameras there. And I think that's just the way life is. It's not the, you know, the physics department's fault or the political science department's fault that we're not on ESPN. But the reality is that many people view universities through this lens of intercollegiate athletics, and especially football, which gives you that coverage until basketball season starts.
Mm-hmm.
I think it gives us year-round coverage, and we lack that. In the summer, we don't get much coverage right now because people are talking football across the country, and they're talking about the recruits that are coming in and what the predictions are and all of this, who the opponents are. When you don't have that, they don't gravitate to some of the Olympic sports that we'd like for them to, but they just don't do that as much. So that's going to give us year-round attention. And the one thing that, you know, I want us always to be cognizant of is, you know, sometimes, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but a university is oftentimes defined by the success of your athletic program. It just is, and that's not always fair.
Right.
And if you win and you do things well, that's great. It's also defined if you abide by the rules or adhere to them, and if you don't, that's a negative definition oftentimes for your university. So it's a pretty heavy burden. We want to make sure we do it right. And football gives another element to us, and we've just got to make sure that we do it right like we've been doing, that we graduate our student athletes, that we get the right kind of people in the program, and that we run a good program.
The 24-hour news cycle demands the scrutiny involved. What's next for football? What are as you work towards next spring and then into 2011-12, what are some of the things on your timetable that need to be met at the next few stages?
Well, and a lot of it's going to happen in 2011. A lot of it is. Number one, we're going to hire a coach in the April time frame, somewhere around in there. I won't say exactly April, but around the months surrounding April. We'll hire a coach, and that person will be able to hire 2 or 3 staff members. And we will then have renovated the second floor of the Barnhart Student Activity Center, and that will be permanent office space, but temporary office space for our football staff. And I say renovated. It used to be the game room, and when the new student union was built, all of those moved out. We will finish up schematic design of the football stadium, and construction will actually begin in the spring of 2011. Shovels will be put in the ground, and reality will really hit then. We will continue to research conference affiliation for football only. We're doing that now. We'll continue to do it and have conversations and try to determine what is best for our university and what's best placement for us. And then we'll continue to finish the football schedule for 2013-14. We're lumping those two together because usually when you schedule home and home in that regard. And so those are top things. And then in 2012, we will bring in the first class of redshirt football players, student athletes. We will hire some additional staff members and continue hiring football coaches and have that staff, and we will be in our new home, the Football Field House, which will have a different name by then.
Right.
I should have said that we are also working on naming rights right now and selling FSLs, and as we get closer, I can't wait for that announcement to come that we've sold out the FSLs, because that's the only way somebody will be able to get a seat. And 15,000 sounds like a big number, but it's not that big a number when you look at all of the allocations of tickets and what our students will get.
There's a certain number that have to go out to opponents and students and things like that. Tailgating, parking, all that stuff I know is under consideration. How that's going to work, I know there's a lot of planning and a lot of meetings about that.
There are several teams that Judy and I have appointed working on different aspects of the football program. For example, getting ready for 80 new athletes who will require academic support, medical support, training, and all those kinds of things. And then the logistics of game day, which because of the way this campus is laid out and where the stadium is, it's just not going to be possible to have hundreds of parking spaces surrounding the stadium. We have lots of parking on campus, though, in our decks and our surface lots around the campus, around where the stadium is, and we're going to have to rely upon some kind of shuttle system and a lot of people walking to get to the stadium, which I think will be a fun experience. You know, I was at the University of Wisconsin for graduate school, and everybody walked to the games. It was not expected that you could park right next to the stadium. So it'll be just part of the thing we have to work out. We have to then, of course, think about folks with disabilities and how to get them close to the stadium. We'll have ticketing policies and everything else to work out. And one thing Judy and I have been very clear on to everyone is that the students are paying the freight here, at least to get started. And we've got to make sure that the students who want to attend the games can get in the games. And when you have 15,000 seats, we're thinking that's going to be a good crowd, but there'll be pressure for tickets.
The challenge to get everybody that wants in there. Go back to FSL sales for a moment. I know some of the numbers are in here in October of 2010. Over 3,300 at this point. I know more to come, but percentages. We got some interesting percentages as far as participation from alums, non-alums, givers. Previously not givers, now are givers. When we get some of those numbers in, what are some of the responses? What do you think when you see some of the percentages that we've seen? 50, give me the right percent,
well,
58%?
There's 58% of the folks that have purchased FSLs that have never been connected from a financial contribution to the athletic program before. So they are absolutely new Niner Nation members. And so that's very positive and encouraging. And then we've got like 54% of the holders are alums that have purchased FSLs.
Right.
In that regard. So, and so that tells us something too. Our alums do want this. Unfortunately, the timing of this falls into a recession, and some folks are out of jobs. I honestly do believe it's had a huge impact on FSL sales.
Sure.
And I think as the economy improves, we're going to see these numbers go up. We're at a little over $4 million in FSL sales, and then we've raised an additional 1.5 to 2 in gifts. You know, outright gifts for naming opportunities.
If you haven't purchased your FSL, Judy's going to tell you how to do that. Charlotte49erfootball.com. Go to that website. If you're not comfortable with the website, you can contact our ticket office or the Athletic Foundation office if you want a hard brochure yourselves. The brochure is online, and you can order online. And we have a nice payment plan. The longer you wait, the payment plan is not as good, because if you spread it out over 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, but we think we have something for everybody. And there are two types of FSLs. One is a $1,000 FSL price, and that is from the 30-yard lines out. And then between the 30s, it's a $2,500 FSL. And that gets you the right to own those seats and buy your season tickets every year. You'll have first dibs on those seats that you've purchased FSLs for. And as Judy said, spread the payments out. Don't take it all at once. If you start now, you bought a car before, divide it by the number of months, that's how much it's going to cost. So in this economy, give a little as you go, and it's not a big number at the end of the day. And as I think, as you always say, everyone should consult their tax attorney, but it turns out that there's some tax advantages to this. Yes, 80%. And there are some other reasons to do it that make sense for people who want to be part of the 49er football. Good responses so far from the community, from the media. Just kind of, are you pleased with how things have gone? There's still a lot of work left to be done, as we all know, but just from this point forward. Well, I think, like Judy said, I think because of the recession, we were disappointed in not being able to jumpstart the 49er seat license program the way I had originally conceived of it, with Judy and with help from other people. But in retrospect, I think it came out right. I think we went through 5 or 6 different financial plans with the trustees. And at the end of the day, I think the answer for us was, if we don't do it now, we'll never do it. You'll never find a better time to build anything. Debt rates are at an all-time low. Construction prices are at an all-time low. And if we wait till we're 35,000 students, the cost of this will be just astronomical. So I think the decision to move forward the way we did was the right decision, and we've gotten very positive responses. Of course, there are always going to be critics. Sure. We even had, we've had people who said this is not the right time, this is not a good thing for UNC Charlotte.
But at the end, I think the consensus of the students by large margins, and among our alumni, again by large margins, and eventually unanimously by our trustees and board of governors, I think we came to the right place.
Yeah, if not now, when, kind of thing. And
The decision makers see the value of football.
these are two very popular people. We've been very fortunate to get them both here at the same time. Hopefully the next time we sit down in a studio like this, we'll have a coach too. And we'll talk, you know, we're moving forward here. So get on board with it. And as Judy said, get online and get your FSLs. You can also call the 49ers Ticket Office, 704-687-4949. They'll help you out as well. A lot of different ways to do it. We hope that you'll engage us because we're engaging you. Come on campus on a Saturday. Come on anyway. Come early. You know, come before football season. We've got a lot of sports going on here. But certainly join us on August the 31st, 2013, and get your T-shirt. Campbell is coming, and a home game, man, that's just going to be so much fun.
It was a hard choice. Campbell, Notre Dame, it was.
Thank you both so much for some time and give our fans a chance to just kind of look inside what's going on. It's been a lot of fun, and cannot wait for somebody to actually put some of those helmets on and get the pads cracking. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thanks, sir.
He's Chancellor Dr. Phil Dubois, Judy Rose, Athletics Director. I'm Ryan Rose. Thanks for joining us here at the 49ers Football Special. More to come.